If I were to ask you what the sequel to Jurassic Park is, the original sequel, what would you say? Most of you would likely say, well, obviously it's Jurassic Park, The Lost World. We all saw that movie. Well, you're wrong. Something existed even before the novel existed. Another mysterious Jurassic Park 2.
Prepare for drop! Go! Go! Go!
So welcome to another episode of Button Smash, and today we're going to go quite retro with two titles, one of them which I rented countless times at my local video store, and the other one I hadn't heard of until like last week. Had no idea it existed. The original sequel to Jurassic Park, Jurassic Park Part 2, The Chaos Continues. Going back in time to 1992/93, Jurassic Park mania was in full swing. You can't really understand how massive an event Jurassic Park was for us early 90s kids unless you were really there. It was a movement. It was inescapable. It was marketed to us everywhere. Aside from the actual movie coming out in 93, Jurassic Park had board games, action figures, deluxe play sets, all kinds of merchandise. Probably anything you could think of, it had a Jurassic Park something to it. Clothing, McDonald's value meal cups, even a theme park ride opening later in the decade, which is awesome too. And sure, the series is still around. We've got the new Jurassic World movies, but they had nowhere near the impact that the original Jurassic Park did. They also had a massive plethora of video games on just about every console imaginable. But then the question arises, what do you do when the first movie's over and done with, you've got a million video games already, and there's still no sequel to the movie yet? The Lost World novel didn't even come out till 1995, so what do? Do you just stop? No. You want to keep that Jurassic Park money flowing in. You make your own sequel. And this is where the 1994 video game Jurassic Park Part 2, The Chaos Continues, comes in. A sequel to Jurassic Park before the real sequel existed, and it's kind of funny because it's a little different than how the movies ended up being. After the original Jurassic Park, Dr. Grant, very understandably, wanted nothing to do with live dinosaurs anymore after almost being eaten by them several times. I wouldn't either, screw that.
Are you saying that you wouldn't want to get onto Isla Sorna and study them if you had the chance?
No force on earth or heaven could get me on that island.
That is, until you give him an entire armory of machine guns and grenades and give him permission to blow away everyone and everything in his way. Then he's more than happy to go back to the island. That's right, Jurassic Park Part 2, The Chaos Continues, plays almost like a Contra shooter with some platforming and exploration elements. And Dr. Grant is now Rambo. The story reason for being back on the island, well, John Hammond, after saying this, of course,
after careful consideration, I've decided not to endorse your park. So have I.
Decides to start planning a reopening of Jurassic Park, and he sent a heavily armed team to assess the island after the first disaster. They were overrun by dinosaurs, and of course this is all in the instruction manual, not in the actual game. And now Louis Dodgson, the CEO of Biosyn, a rival company to InGen, is invading the island with their own troops in order to steal his work and take over Jurassic Park for themselves. So Hammond asked Dr. Grant to go to Isla Nublar and stop Biosyn by blowing them away with loads of ammunition.
No force on earth or heaven could get me on that island.
And if you play two players, Grant is also joined by an original character, Tactical Sergeant Michael Wolfskin, a color palette swap of the Dr. Grant sprite, who also doesn't look anything like Dr. Grant, actually. And I know Jurassic Park is inspired by a novel. I've never read it, so my knowledge there is limited. You're welcome to leave your thoughts in the comments below with some book facts if you've read it. But having Biosyn in a video game back in 1994 is interesting, since they were strictly mentioned in the novel, and never in the original movie by name. So the game does actually pull something from the original source material. Eventually, the movie does mention Biosyn. If you saw the latest one, Dominion, Biosyn does make its first movie appearance as the evil corporation. And Dodgson returns as the CEO of the company. If you recall, he was also the same character from the first movie, with that shaving cream can that made Dennis squeal hilariously. Actually, I'm still not really sure if that sound was Dennis laughing or the can.
It's great. Oh, God. It's cool to compartmentalize inside.
Before Dominion, according to the Super Nintendo video game universe, Biosyn sent its troops to accomplish multiple objectives. Your mission? Defeat them. And here's your list of missions right here. It might seem like only a short amount, but much of these have emergency missions that pop up afterwards once you beat them. I loved this game growing up. I rented it several times, but man is it frustratingly hard. The missions really are a mixed bag of objectives, like wiping out all the raptors by turning on poison gas, then having to haul ass and get out on time, destroying raptor nests in a volcano, fixing an antenna really high up in the mountains, and the difficulty is all over the place. Right away, I'd just like to point out, though, how amazing the game's soundtrack is. Probably the best aspect of the game. Very atmospheric, just listen to this. I've praised the music, now let me go ahead and complain. The gameplay, I mean, it functions. The shooting mechanics work great, but many of these levels are labyrinths, a pet peeve of mine in gaming. I hate labyrinths, where you'll wander around in a maze lost, and that's one of the game's biggest issues. Some of these missions have no sense of direction, and if you don't have quick reaction skills, you're screwed. You're not going to beat this game. These raptors come rocketing from the sides of the screen out of nowhere, constantly, to where you get pretty good at predicting one every couple of seconds. And Dr. Grant has two sets of weapons, a collection of lethal weapons and a collection of non-lethal weapons that you have to constantly flip through in the game. The shock weapon is probably my favorite one to take out the dinosaurs because it works really well and you don't have to worry about the dinosaurs dying, and it's important not to kill every dinosaur in the game. I remember when I was a kid blowing away every dinosaur with my machine gun relentlessly and eventually getting a game over, and I did not understand why. I had no idea how to avoid it, and as I got older and I replayed the game a couple times, I finally understood how this works. There's a number at the top of the screen in the middle with the Jurassic Park logo next to it. That's the amount of dinosaurs present. If you use lethal weapons on most dinosaurs and you kill them, the number goes down. If you kill too many, the game ends. You need to use non-lethal weapons on them to keep the number from going down. Of course, if you have killed a little too many, eventually the number starts climbing back up as dinosaurs reproduce. It's all very weird. However, John Hammond doesn't care about velociraptors or the T-Rex. Or human beings, as a matter of fact. Killing any humans, raptors, or the T-Rex does not affect that counter at all. So when there are a lot of dinos around, it's best to just use a non-lethal weapon on all of them so you don't have to keep switching back and forth constantly. And at the end of the first mission, that raptor attack mission, the game reveals its biggest flaw. Its biggest middle finger saurus to the player. The damn timer. Many of these missions are timed, which wouldn't be so bad if some of them weren't such a maze to get through. On top of that, you know what happens when you die? You restart at the beginning of the level. No checkpoints, no mercy. It's insanely tedious, it's insanely frustrating, especially since I was running low on health pretty much at the end of every single stage. Eventually it becomes obvious that the game is starting to repeat the same environments with different objectives. There's the indoor buildings, the volcano, the mountains, the plains, then it just kinda rinse and repeats everything with some more mazes and timers. Once again, I would like to point out the music. Just listen to that volcano theme. It sounds like something out of old school Doom. As much as I've complained about the timer and mazes, there really is a great game hiding somewhere underneath all this. I wish they would have just kept the Contra shoot 'em up aspect and gotten rid of the timer. It would have made for a much better experience and some kind of checkpoint system too. Like a certain amount of lives before it starts you off at the beginning, like many other games did during the era. The objectives might all be different, but in the end you're still doing the same thing over and over, getting from point A to B, hoping you don't run out of time, run out of health, or kill too many dinosaurs. One great example of the maze aspect is the High Terra stage, where you have to climb this huge mountaintop filled with pteranodons. They're not hard to destroy, they're not the problem at all for this level, but I wandered around this mountain for a long time, slowly losing health as enemies chipped away at me, and somehow I ended up all the way at the beginning of the damn level. At some point I got turned around and was walking backwards the whole time. The dinosaur variety is pretty cool though, with most of the regular enemies, the Goombas of the game, consisting of raptors, Dilophosaurus, and smaller dinosaurs that just run around. But some areas have surprises, like the volcano stage out of nowhere has a Triceratops that takes a crap load of damage to bring down. I'm sorry, I know he's not a meat eater, but I had no choice. I had to blow him away. And there's the obligatory T-Rex chase, which also has another middle finger moment. If you successfully fight off the T-Rex, the game awards you with... Whoops! Surprise death pit. I also find it funny how this random driver just zooms right into the pit to be sacrificed forever. Besides the dinosaurs, there's also a boss in the form of a helicopter that sweeps in trying to smack you around with a cage, and explosives, and this is where the chaos continues is at its best, when it's just trying to be a fun action shooter. Unfortunately, much of the time I'm so focused on trying to outrun a timer or avoiding a game over and starting everything from the beginning to really enjoy the action. But you want to know something far worse than any threat I've talked about so far? After you spend about 2 or 3 hours redoing stages over and over, getting lost and running out of time, hearing that game over music on repeat, slowly losing your sanity level by level, let me present to you the final boss, the T-Rex. No biggie, just shoot it till it dies, right? There's a death pit in front of you. He just eats up all your ammo and the timer. But here's the greatest insult to you, the player. The greatest insult imaginable that this game could have pulled off. Oh my god. If you lose during this final encounter, you lose, good sir. You get nothing. No continues, no retries. You go all the way back to the title screen and have to start the entire game all over again. Once I realized I had to do everything all over again, I almost canceled this entire damn video because I was so outraged, so angry that I almost couldn't justify playing through everything again. But the show must go on. I made sure I had my most powerful explosives readily equipped, and I let loose in a barrage of hellfire until this reptilian asshole exploded. Jurassic Park Part 2, The Chaos Continues, on the Super Nintendo. Very frustrating experience, but in all honesty, the action, soundtrack, overall atmosphere, it all still provides somewhat of a good time, even with its flaws. And while putting this review together, I learned there was a Game Boy version of the game. And I don't mean a Jurassic Park Game Boy game. I mean specifically Jurassic Park Part 2, The Chaos Continues, the Game Boy port, or as the in-game title screen simply calls it, Jurassic Park 2. I have never seen this in my life, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. Now, this one I'd say is the complete opposite of the Super Nintendo version. It's extremely easy, with very little challenge, and about 45 minutes long without rushing through it, but it's a lot of fun. I would have loved to have this game back in the day during long car rides, and the first thing I noticed when the game started was the music. I had the Jurassic Park NES game when I was a kid, and this is just the soundtrack from that game on the Game Boy. It uses the exact same music. In the Game Boy version, you once again play as Dr. Grant, armed with a gun and grenades, all unlimited, so fire away. You have one gun and one set of grenades, and they never run out. There's no other humans, no biosyn, no being careful around dinosaurs. Actually, I'm not even sure why this game is considered Jurassic Park 2. If you look at the manual, the story is literally just the first movie. Dr. Grant's stuck in Jurassic Park during a hurricane, everything went offline, the dinosaurs got out, and he needs to find a way to escape. And the only way to escape is to find enough key cards to open the door between the zones. And that's the main objective of the game. You walk around, you shoot dinosaurs, and collect key cards. And when you have enough key cards, the door at the end of the level opens, letting you into the next zone. And there's 4 main areas referred to as zones with sub-levels in between. And you might think that key card collecting is a chore, because a lot of times it is in video games. But they're all very simple to find. Most of them are right along your path. The levels aren't big, and I can't recall any keycard that was very well hidden until I got to the underwater stage. Suddenly there were over 50 cards to collect in one area, whereas before there's only a couple per level. I thought it was a mistake or a glitch at first, then I realized, wait a minute, hold on, there's some rooms here with like 1 million of them in there. So it's actually just as easy. I'm kind of confused as to why they put such a high number. The level variety at least isn't just recycled versions of the same stage like in the SNES version. Each one's different, ranging from a jungle area, indoor facility with giant flames you gotta jump over. There's a raft section where underwater monsters come up to bite you. They're all very brief, fun, and fairly linear stages. My favorite part of the game is that it does have some boss fights, all very easy just like the rest of it, but I always appreciate when games break up the monotony with boss fights. There's some T-Rex stages where you just, very slowly mind you, run away from a T-Rex until the end of the stage, and at the end of each zone, there's a boss as well. The first zone's got the Triceratops, which makes me question who the bad guy here is. These Triceratops just want to eat some grass all day, but here we are, forced to gun it down. Dr. Grant is truly a monster. Then the mighty Pteranodon. It swoops in with a rock to throw at you, and in between rocks, a couple little minions fly around too. Nothing much more difficult than shooting at them and then avoiding the rock and shooting him. The most interesting boss is the Cephalosaur. I didn't know what the hell it was, but this is the first boss in the Jurassic Park game I can recall that's not a traditional dinosaur. It's an underwater squid thing with a pointy shell that zips diagonally back and forth. I always think it's kind of cool when they touch on prehistoric creatures that aren't necessarily just big lizards. And of course you can't have Jurassic Park game without raptors. This time it's a boss, and it stands almost upright in a really goofy ass fashion. Kinda looks like an ostrich. And the final boss, the T-Rex. Surprised? Unlike the Super Nintendo version, no timer here, and no game over to the title screen instantly. He just shifts back and forth and bites down every once in a while. You need to duck and then hit him when you have a chance, the way to go until it hilariously slumps down. And that completes both Jurassic Park Part 2 The Chaos Continues games. Totally different experiences from each other, and one is technically just based on the first movie. Check them out if you haven't before. Leave me a comment down below if you have played these or if you've never heard of them. I'm curious because nobody ever talks about these. Let me know if you want any more retro game videos. Catch you guys later.